Hi.
Hey everybody. We're in Shepherds of the Flock, chapter 10 of In Search of Christian Freedom by Ray Franz. The subhead is What Kind of Shepherding? Page 314. In the witness community, elders and others in positions of responsibility are told to be like the shepherd described in Jesus' illustration, quoted at the beginning of this chapter. That's the shepherd that always seeks out the one and is even willing to leave the 99. That illustration conveys a beautiful picture, one of the shepherd's earnest concern for a single sheep, seen not simply as part of a flock or as a mere number, but as an individual creature needing his help, care, and protection. The description is in striking contrast to that given of religious shepherds of an earlier day, to whom the prophet Ezekiel addressed these words, quote, "You have not encouraged the weary, tended the sick, bandaged the hurt, recovered the straggler, or searched for the lost. And even the strong you have driven with ruthless severity." That is Ezekiel 34 verse 4 from the New English Bible.
Back to Ray. I have no question that most witness elders believe themselves to be, and undoubtedly desire to be, like the first shepherd described. But I think that the evidence regrettably shows a higher incidence of organizational policies producing a circumstance like that described in the second account. A circumstance where the sheep are consistently pressured by their shepherds, with even the strong being pushed at a demanding pace, but where very, very little time is spent aiding the weary, the sick, the hurt, the straggling, and the lost among them. In congregation after congregation, it is a sad truth that members find that elders have little time to spend with them in periods of difficulty, illness, depression, or discouragement, but that their time is spent primarily in pushing for greater field service activity. They are too busy to provide strengthening and encouraging help, but very prompt to act if there is any suspicion of misconduct, and can make available many hours for investigation or deliberation.
The organization builds up a notable record each year of numbers of persons expelled, 36,638 being disfellowshipped in just the year 1985, with another 37,426 disfellowshipped in 1986. Beyond doubt, a considerable percentage of these persons had engaged in practices of the kind the apostle describes in his exhortation at 1 Corinthians 5, 9-13, such as fornication, theft, drunkenness, and similar immoral acts.
But while notable in its record of cutting such ones off, the organization's record of helping fellow witnesses who slip into wrongdoing to recover and to reform, of demonstrating willingness not just to spend a few hours, but to give extended personal help over a period of weeks or even many months if necessary, to build up their spiritual strength and aid them to become healed, is by contrast notably weak.
Problems among the youth of Jehovah's Witnesses are undeniably frequent, and in case after case, the remedy consists only of judicial hearings, not infrequently followed by disfellowshipment. The organization may justly recount specific instances of aiding persons of the world, that is, drug addicts, violent or immoral persons, to leave a wrong path. That often comes as a result of meeting these people in the field service. But once the individual takes the step of baptism, the willingness to spend any extended amount of time with him or her, time that is no longer reported as field service, noticeably wanes. Thus, the record of bringing former wrongdoers into the organization, thereby increasing the numerical size of the flock, is considerably better than the record of helping those already in to remain spiritually strong or to recover from a lapse into wrongdoing.
This preoccupation with numerical increase is seen in the statement in the 1980 Yearbook, page 11, that, quote, "Had it not been for disfellowshippings, the United States would have seen an increase of almost 3.5% in 1979, instead of almost 1.5%. That means that 2% of the total membership was disfellowshipped in that year. What seems incredible is that the factor the organization here focuses on is not the plight of the lost sheep, but the lower percentage of increase reported. How utterly unlike the shepherd of Jesus' parable, who was willing to leave the 99 in his concern to rescue the one strayed sheep.
I remember in my day there was no stress upon keeping accurate records, statistics about shepherding. There was a stress somewhat upon the elders to make sure you did some shepherding. But the very fact that we keep stats on all of the outreach, but not upon the internal pastoral work,
which might have encouraged them to devote more time to pastoral work if they knew that this was considered, something that should be done.
Yeah. Ray has cited several texts here. We want to look at a couple of them. 2 Timothy chapter 2, 24 to 26.
Okay.
And 1 Thessalonians 5 verses 14 and 15, where he's stressing the contrast between the counsel Paul gives not only to the churches themselves, but also to pastors like Timothy, shepherds in the first century.
So 2 Timothy verse said, "But a slave of the Lord does not need to fight, but needs to be gentle toward all, qualified to teach, keeping himself restrained under evil, instructing with mildness those not favorably disposed, as perhaps God may give them repentance, leading to an accurate knowledge of truth. And they may come back to their proper senses, out from the snare of the devil, seeing that they have been caught alive by him for the will of that one."
Well, the stress obviously there is on regaining or restoring people who have drifted away and fallen away from the faith, chasing after the strays.
And characterized by gentleness and restraint from getting angry, I guess, and mildness and really exhorting this person to come round.
Exhortation.
To repentance.
Not judging them as having flaws in their character or having a bad attitude. Similar in the Thessalonians one.
Okay. That one says, "On the other hand, we exhort you, brothers, admonish the disorderly, speak consolingly to the depressed souls, support the weak, be long-suffering toward all. See that no one renders injury for injury to anyone else, but always pursue what is good toward one another and to all others."
To all others, well, that might include the people outside. As I'm reminded also of a passage in Galatians where Paul says, "Do good to all, but especially to those related to you in the faith."
But if he's saying here, admonish the disorderly, that would be within the congregation.
Yeah.
And consoling the depressed and the weak, being long-suffering toward all. So all these are characteristics that you would find in the church. You would find, these situations for the brothers.
Well, we've made this contrast between what Paul does in the way of admonition and counsel in all of his epistles, and his lack of stress upon outreach or evangelism, or what we would call preaching as Jehovah's Witnesses. There's absolutely no record that Paul ever in the 13 epistles referenced our responsibility to go and witness to others. Even our classic proof text, again in Timothy, is given to a teacher within the congregation.
And he's teaching the congregation, he's preaching to them.
When he says, preach the word, be at it urgently, in favorable season, unfavorable season, that's Timothy's responsibility. He never lays that responsibility on the general population of Christians as sheep, that is the saints. So if you want more on that, we'll link to a video that we did in the door-to-door series. The very last one, which has actually been watched, I think, less than the other ones, is a reference to all of the instances where Paul uses the word proclaim, preach, or witness in his epistles. So we'll put that in as a link. Next time, the subhead is quick to investigate, slow to help.